Welcome to Nutty Buddy Entertainment. The Ugly. Ew!
Okay, go ahead, Luke. Give us your ugly.
So the point of when Peter handed the box to MJ and Ned, he's like, look, I need you guys not to be there because it's not going to be safe. It's now the end result, again, the scene, as Chris just said, was one of his favorite scenes there. The end result of it, of the whole thing of how Aunt May died, perfect amount of heart-wrenching emotion, whatever, all that stuff, fantastic, very well done as far as that getting the point across of, you know, the emotional impact that this was having on Peter. Mm-hmm. But in the way that the movie was put together there, they needed to have something where Aunt May like refused to leave, something like that, because he just said how dangerous it was for them to be there, and then here's Aunt May just like, oh yeah, she's just here with all these supervillains, guys that are monsters and killers. Like, why would he be okay with her being there? Why would she be okay being there? Unless there was some sort of no, I'm going to help you do this. I can prove to you that our moral stance is going to have enough impact. That I feel like that probably was cut out. That's my thought on that. I just think that whole scene was heavily edited. So if I have to pick an ugly per se, I would just say that doesn't really fit with the rest of the movie, in my opinion.
We got him to pick one, you guys.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Yeah, that's great.
That scene was amazing. Great the way it ended. So great. That small aspect of it should have been better. But like when Dr. Osborn is like, if you'd like a job and if you're okay with traveling to another universe, so good. So good. I loved it. It was great. It's just bits and pieces there. Could have been better.
Yeah, I agree. Travis.
All right, really nitpicking here for the ugly, and Ryan, you already talked about it a little bit, but basically when Peter Parker and Doctor Strange are fighting in that what is it called when he puts them in the
mirror dimension?
Yeah. So I kind of thought it was stupid that basically Peter Parker, he's not even in MIT. So he's not even graduated to be even more smarter. And yes, I will say that.
You did not just say more smarter, talking about someone not being smart enough.
Yes, Luke, more smarter. So he hasn't even graduated to get to that level. And then all of a sudden he just figures out, he's like, oh, it's math. That's how I have to beat him to get out of here. And then that was it. So I just thought that was, it was a way for him to get out of it, but I just thought it was a little bit kind of cheesy. But that's really nitpicking. I really didn't care, but I had to sit down and find something wrong for you, Ryan.
Thank you, Travis. And that's the point, right? It's all relative. So if you really didn't think it was that big of a deal, it's just the one thing you'll harp on. But I agree, like, with the fact that even if he's smart and he figured that out, I just the powers that Doctor Strange has in that dimension shouldn't have even stood a chance against. I don't see how he would have stood a chance against Doctor Strange. But anyway, Chris, you got an ugly?
This is especially in comparison to, I rewatched parts of Homecoming the other night, and Homecoming was actually more than I remembered, filmed on a lot of like real sets, and they like went out to the city and like filmed stuff, and it looked like a real movie. And this is becoming another kind of complaint with the Marvel, but like overly CGI. There's like nothing really in this. There's like 2 sets in this movie, and there's a lot of like just obvious green screen. That didn't look good, in my opinion, which, you know, again, is kind of a matter of taste, but I just thought the cinematography was pretty ugly. I think maybe it might have to do with shooting during COVID, but I mean, that's kind of a lame excuse, in my opinion. Like the scene at the very end where they're standing at May's grave and Tom Holland and Jon Favreau are standing next to each other, and it cuts from an actual shot into a cemetery. on location. Cuts to them standing next to each other, obvious green screen background. And I don't know who was there, but there was one that was, I think Jon Favreau was like clearly superimposed next to him. They weren't, and then they were both like, they were looking at the grave and like talking, not at each other. I forget what the phrase is, but it was like, it was very clearly they were not on the set at the same time. And there was probably more scenes like that. Like Willem Dafoe wakes up in the alleyway and it's like a CGI alleyway. And it's like, let's just film, like, okay, comparing to the Raimi films, all right, I don't know how he did it, but all the swing, like not all of them, but the swinging scenes in that movie, Swinging on the Web, you have a real camera swooping through the streets of New York. And obviously Spider-Man is superimposed onto it, you know, not stupid, but there's a tactile sense of you are watching actual camera work, something that's happening in our reality. Whereas most of what happens in this movie is very clearly ones and zeros on a screen. And for me personally, I think that breaks, your brain knows in the background, it's telling you this isn't real. So I prefer, you know, knowing that what they did in the first one and probably the second one, I don't remember that one as well, but that they actually shot on location and like used real lighting. I don't like the look of the flat CGI. So
Okay,
that's my ugly.
yeah, that's a good one. Luke, you have something to say about that?
Yeah, so I was watching, you mentioned how much COVID had an impact, Chris. It actually, that's legitimately the reason for a lot of that. Whether you think they should have waited until they could, that fair, totally fair.
But,
I personally, I'm glad it came out when it did. But they said
Yeah.
that like the ending scene when Benedict Cumberbatch is up on the Statue of Liberty there, he's talking to Tom Holland. They did that from across the world. The two of them, those were reshoots they did, and they were nowhere near it. They weren't on the same continent when they were doing that. So they had, and I guess that was COVID related. They couldn't fly them. They weren't allowed to get them to where they needed to. So I do think that's fair that you don't like that, but I do think that played a big part in it.
But I mean, even if you watch Hawkeye was also filmed in like November, December of last year. And like in Hawkeye, which definitely has a budget probably 10 times less than this, they went to 30 Rock and they filmed a whole action scene with dozens of extras, you know, in the flesh. So I don't, you know, it's an excuse, but it's like Hawkeye did it. So
That would require me to watch Hawkeye, which will never happen. I'm not watching that trash. Anyways,
moving on. Yeah. And I
waste
think
of
like,
time.
but I think
would
Marvel
say,
is kind of getting lazy with it, with like, we'll just throw money at 20, like, because like Black Widow was the same thing. Like it's all CGI. We'll throw money at 20 different CGI companies and take care of it. We'll fix it in post. It's fine. And I think there needs to be a little more like I don't know, work a little harder.
More Tom Cruise actually flying into outer space just to film it.
Exactly.
More of that. That's fair. That's fair. I expect that.
Did you know that the scene with the lizard and the Sandman were actually just taken off their reused from their original movies? Like they didn't even have them on site to film.
They did their voices, but they weren't actually filmed for the movie.
It was actually taken from their
characters. They still played their names were still in there.
I heard about that, and when we watched the movie the second time, I noticed, I was like, oh yeah, I seen that on Spider-Man 3. Oh, I seen that in The Amazing Spider-Man. So there's that. Okay, let me get into one of my uglies. I just wish that it was clearer why the villains were all working together. You know, and again, this is nitpicky because come on, we want to see Spider-Man fight as many villains, 3 Spider-Man fight and number of villains, but like the lizard wanted to turn everybody into a lizard. Sandman wanted to go home. It was really Electro and Green Goblin that were on the same page. So I wish they would have had sort of like, so we're talking about like a scene like where Green Goblin like convinced them all it would be best to come into this world. Like, hey, hey, Sandman, your daughter can't be healed with the technology in that universe, but in this universe, she can be healed. You help us, we'll bring your daughter into this universe and we can heal her. And, whatever the case may be, like, but just a scene where they like get together so that they fight and they have one motivation in this fight, because it really doesn't make sense why they're helping each other out. So that would be my one thing. Travis?
I would say with that, they're working together because they all of a sudden just got brought into this universe, and the one same factor that they all have in common is Spider-Man is the enemy. So I think they're just in a mindset that once we take care of Spider-Man, then we'll figure everything else out. So that's how I take that. I mean, it's not like they say that at all, but that's just how I take that as.
I would say that's a fair point, but it still does, like, the Sandman part of it still baffles me, because he didn't want, like, I think you could say that, like, the Lizard wanted the box destroyed, and maybe, well, Green Goblin and Electro for sure wanted the box destroyed, but Sandman wanted to use the box. So that would be the outlier when it came to the villains. But I just wish they would have made it clear, or had like, hey, we're all going to team up to attack the Spider-Man, and this is why, or whatever. But that's a fair point, Travis. Okay. Let's see. Travis, do you have another ugly, or is that the only one you had?
That's it.
Okay. Luke, you're done with uglies?
Thought it was really ugly that the movie wasn't much longer. I really would have liked more movie. I don't know if have I already talked about this? Oh wait,
yes, you did.
Let's talk about it
Chris,
again. It should have been longer.
Talk about forced humor right here.
I want more movie. I would like to point out how great it was when they were sitting there and talking about how Tobey Maguire.
We're gonna need another 40 minutes.
They were talking about their potential relationship things, and they intentionally left it open-ended so that we can see more future things be answered. Now there's a little bit of a calling, like this. It happened in multiple places, but it's like, oh, that's interesting. Andrew Garfield is like, I stopped pulling my punches. Oh, so maybe we could see that. Maybe now that we're in an era where we could TV shows and movies, how great was that? I think it was great.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a Sony Spider-Man. I think we're gonna get a Sony Spider-Man, and we're gonna get a Marvel Spider-Man. I think that's what's gonna happen. Chris, any more uglies?
No, just like, my nitpicky things with the writing and the plot. But I mean, I don't really have like ugly. Even my cinematography rant is more of a bad than an ugly. There's nothing like truly like distasteful or awful. So
okay, let me get into my final ugly then. My final ugly is Ned all of a sudden having powers for plot convenience. Now I know it just, I love how Pitch Meeting, I don't know if you guys watched Pitch Meeting when they were talking about this, but he said it so he's like, basically when Ned learns the power, he's basically like, the guy was like, so we're really going to just crap on Doctor Strange in this movie. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way I sort of felt. It was like, it was so easy for him to open portals and find people and stuff like this, never ever being trained. And if I'm going to be mad at The Last Jedi, and I'm going to be mad at The Force Awakens, no, what's the other one? The Rise of Skywalker, because there is no training whatsoever that allows Rey to be as powerful as she is. I cannot not point out that Ned's ability to use that power without being trained, that to me is an ugly, and I that was something that bothered me even after the first watch.
That's fair. Real quickly, let's take the temperature of the room. What do we think of the Ned character?
That's an interesting question.
Well, I mean, I have a counterpoint to Ryan's point.
Yeah, I knew you did.
On Ned. I don't know if I should do that first or second. I don't know what.
Do it second. We'll answer Chris's question, and then we'll get to your counterpoint.
I think it's important for Peter Parker to have a nerdy friend. I think that's important. He's supposed to be a nerdy kid, and if we just see him as Spider-Man the whole time, it's kind of, it loses it turns into what the Amazing Spider-Man was, where he's the coolest dude in school that the most attractive girl wants to date.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
who Peter Parker is. Emma Stone is not supposed to be all over Peter Parker. That's not supposed to happen. So in that sense, MJ is kind of the homely looking one in Homecoming. You know, Zendaya, like she, like they, as it goes here, she's growing up, she's turning more, but like that's the type of person who's supposed to be attracted to him. He's not supposed to be cool. Ned is clearly not cool, and he's a good friend to him. So I kind of like him. But he has nothing to do going forward, which is why I'm okay with. What they
hold
did
on.
If we never see him again, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I hope he becomes the Hobgoblin. That's what I'm going to say right now. But I would say I do like Ned because it really shows us what class he's in as far as like social class, like in school. So like it shows us where Peter should be. Travis, how do you feel about Ned?
I like Ned. I feel, and I've only seen the other Spider-Mans once for some reason. I need to rewatch them, but I remember him being funnier in the other ones more than he was in this one. So I kind of like him in the previous ones more than in this movie per se. So as in like his role in the movie compared to this one.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, real quickly, since I asked the question, I'll say for me.
Yeah, I want to know what you think.
I rewatched the first one and it confirmed my memory of watching it the first time. I didn't like him in the first movie because all his dialogue is basically like, "This is awesome. This is so cool." And it's like, he didn't really, I mean, he's kind of like a best pal thing. It just was like kind of, for me, I didn't like the character in the first one. I did like him in the second one because he got like a girlfriend and he kind of got to do his own thing. And he wasn't like purely defined, like, I'm just here to like tell Peter that he's great. And they brought him back a little to that in this one where he's just kind of always like, yeah, you know, whatever, you're the best. I'm here, you know, I don't know. So I liked him better in the second one. I thought they kind of regressed him in this one. But if we don't ever see him again going forward, I would be okay with that.
That's fair.
I think that's fair. I like the fact because the whole point is he's in high school, right? In high school, you have a best friend or a buddy who's with you in high school, like no matter who you are, right? Like you have at least one generally, and that's just your guy or your girl.
That might have been a cooler thing too, because like he had the girlfriend and she showed up for the one scene when he goes back to school and then she disappears from the movie. So, you know, obviously whatever could happen, but I thought when they were kind of together, that was better. But we're way out of the weeds.
Yeah,
now.
way off. Yeah. So Luke, so I know what your rebuttal is. So go ahead with your rebuttal about the Ned having powers thing.
All right. So full disclosure, as someone who has not seen Doctor Strange, I don't care. I like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's been thing. I'm not big on Marvel as a whole. I liked Captain America and Iron Man and Thor to a lesser extent. I don't care about the B plot Marvel characters.
Okay, so you're starting off real strong. So anybody who likes Marvel, just turn their ears off to your. I think it's a solid explanation though. So continue.
Yep, you're welcome, everyone. You're welcome. Well, Ryan's freaking out when we see this movie. He's like, he didn't learn how to use the portals. And I'm like, Ryan, he still doesn't know how to use the portals. He has no idea what he's doing. He couldn't close them.
Yeah.
They closed without his knowledge. The one closed, and he's like, wait, what?
One.
Like, how did it close? He don't know what he's doing.
Of the plot issues I had problems with, that was not one of them for me. That was
it annoys me. It annoys me when you give people powers that never, like, it's almost like plot convenience.
Yeah,
and it's so stupid.
That kind of ties into what I said, where it's like Strange is kind of portrayed as like a goofus because like he gets his magic ring taken from him. But yeah, that was fine. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, it's funny he gets that taken from him, but he like holds on to the stone while fighting against Thanos, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of
because he wasn't trying. Anyways, so Ryan's freaking out about this. And
I am.
And then we see it a second time because I didn't even notice, because why would I care about that? I'm watching Spider-Man. But then the second time we see it, Doctor Strange is doing his little spell in the basement. And Peter Parker's like, well, my girlfriend though. And he's doing his little thing. He's like, okay, fine. Everyone will forget to accept your girlfriend. He goes, oh, but Ned this, and he pulls the name out of the spell. He goes, what is a Ned? He's like, that's my best friend, and this and this and this. And he put that back in and starts it again. And I said, Ryan, that thing was out of control. That's an excuse to give them the reason that they're like, oh, well, how come he can use the portals now? It's like, because he screwed up the spell that went all haywire and it ended up leaking through, and it gave him some weird ability that he didn't have before. And that's why at the end when he's like, did you open a portal? And it was like, he might have thought that might have been him connecting the dots going back to when he did that spell in the basement. He's like, I might have given him that ability. That might have been on me. He might have been thinking that at that moment. That makes sense. Plot hole resolved that I didn't personally care about at all in the first place.
Well, I'll tell you, it could be a good answer, but I just can't believe like somebody who's so in love with like the Force and how that works and understand that. Listen, Doctor Strange powers is much like the Force. You've got to be trained how to use it, okay? And when you let somebody come on and learn it immediately, even if he was given the powers by Doctor Strange, it diminishes what Doctor Strange accomplishes, and that's my problem with it. But I can understand why you, being a Spider-Man fan, would not care. And you don't like Marvel.
I don't even need him in my movie. I don't even need Doctor Strange in my movie. It's just cool he's here. That's great. But I don't care about his lore. Who cares? This is a Spider-Man movie.
I care. I care about the continuity. So let's go into our next part of our podcast here. Well, that was our ugly for Spider-Man No Way Home. Let us know what little nitpicks you had from this excellent movie. Comment below, like, subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to listen to the rest of the podcast where we talk about the great and the good and the bad, click on the link below, whether you have Spotify or Apple. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will talk to you guys soon.